Hello guys, welcome to the Henry Holster Shop. It is Tuesday, January 2017. It's been an amazing holiday season. Christmas and New Year's were both busy and exciting. Had a chance to do some relaxing. And now I'm back in the shop and trying to get caught up on stuff. SHOT Show's coming up next week. Everyone's going to Vegas to catch the plague. Hi, Conrad Miller. And I'm just here hanging out in my shop with my brother. Making stuff by day and night. First 10 are in. As usual, if you're a Codex shop, please post your company name in the comments so I can keep track of who's who. Hey, Brandon. Crotac Holsters in the house. So, Brandon, I'm going to be in Vegas all week next week, so I have time free. Hit me up. Let's get together. Black Flag Concealment checking in. So, I don't have a tool tip tonight. Hi, Brian Rector. Howdy to you, too. I don't have a tool tip tonight. I just wanted to show you a couple things I've been working on recently. Hi, John Keller. Hi, Jerry Thompson. Hello, Matt. And then talk a little bit about some stuff that's happened today, because today has been a weird day in the holster industry. And I already had this Facebook Live planned. Hi, Hoftac. And weird stuff has been happening today. Ben Miller from Hoplite, thank you for sharing my post on Instagram, Ben. I appreciate you spreading the word about this stuff. While you guys are here, I would very much appreciate it if you would share the feed to your page so that other holster makers that you're friends with might check it out and give me a chance to talk to them too. Eric Powell's here. Not today. So, hey, John Hopman. So, first thing. Yes, I absolutely do know that I am live broadcasting at the same time as President Barack Obama's farewell address at 9 p.m. Not an accident. Not an accident at all. So, just getting out of the way. Here for the free 1911 holster, Ryan Brapp. I don't think you'd know which end of it to hold if you had a 1911. First funny thing is, about an hour ago, Conrad Miller shared my Facebook post announcing this Facebook Live feed, and some dude from Red Nichols Leather Holster Company got on Conrad's post and was just like going off, like, you know, it's plastic, it's not a real holster. And a bunch of other Codex guys were commenting, and everyone's like, is this really happening? Like, is this guy like troll level expert, or does this leather holster maker really think that Codex holsters aren't holsters? Hello, Eric Olson, 508 Holsters in the house. Please post up your company name in the comments, guys, if you're a Codex shop. Ryan says, I don't 1911. Yeah, a lot of people don't 1911. So, just for kicks, I hopped over and looked at that Red Nichols guy's page. So, no surprise. Look at all his photos. In all his photos, all he's showing is leather holsters for 1911s, and this was the kicker, single-action revolvers. Hey, if he wants to go after the 1911 and single-action revolver market, more power to him. That's not even stepping on the tiniest part of my little toe. I'm not in that market at all. Single-action revolvers, knock yourself out. Hey, Anthony Booth. I'm just starting. How do I make a holster? Says Anthony Booth. Well, first got to go to Walmart and buy foam. That's the first step. And then when you get home, just lay down on the floor on it and think about your life. Nick, I'm totally sincere. Like, if he's got a market in the single-action revolver field, there's a lot of guns out there. There's a lot of people who have them, and they probably don't want Codex holsters for their Western, vintage single-action revolvers. So it makes total sense. Hello, Clark. Just hit 50 viewers. Share the feed up. So here's the elephant in the room. The big news today, it was all the buzz on the Codex Facebook groups, is that, yeah, Nick, that's going to happen. Don't worry. I'm staying warm. Today was like 45 degrees outside and rainy and windy, and I was afraid that the shop roof was going to come off for a little while this afternoon. So anyway, the big news today is that Hellbent Holsters got their patent approved. And I don't make a full-over style wallet. I don't really have a dog in that fight. It's been interesting to me. I've watched the entire thing with some interest over the past few years because the way that patents impact our industry is going to be changing. And I've really been trying to understand how I can best quickly and effectively open source basically everything that I know about holster making, which is why I do things like do a video on how to build a thrift press and then build one and then give it away, because I want the knowledge to be out there. That being said, I've got a patent that I've applied for that's pending. Big whoop. I think the reason this particular case is on so many guys' radar is because how it's been handled in the forums, on social media. A lot of guys are really wound up about it. And so here's what I think is going to happen. I think tomorrow or next week, all the guys who have just been running around with their heads cut off like chickens today are going to take a deep breath, and they're going to check their mailbox, and they're not going to get a cease and desist letter day after day after day after day. And stuff is going to start sort of, yeah, that's right, Nathan Gallup, on the forums. On the forums. And by the forums, I mean that Kydex one with Thomas and that awesome admin, from back in the day. Now we can't be friends, Andrew? I don't understand what the issue is, Nick Hoffer. But generally, there are a few reasons to pursue a patent. The first one is you really do, from the ground up, develop something completely unique and innovative. A new kind of transmission for a car, or a new source of fuel for a rocket booster, something really up there. I'm not evil for wanting a patent. I'll explain. Another reason, so you get something because in reality, in lots of kinds of industry, there's an overwhelming R&D cost up front. Millions, tens of millions of dollars get spent over years or decades developing and testing new technology, which involves a lot of failures, a lot of labor, a lot of wasted material, a lot of SpaceX rockets blowing up when they land. That stuff is expensive. Well, when a company finally cracks the code and gets it working, hey, Tommy Tice, then they've got to start recouping the costs. And it is totally legitimate for a company that invested huge amounts of time and money in R&D to secure a patent for their invention to protect themselves so that they're able to recoup some or all of that investment. I don't know about that, Tom. I think those neon wallets were pretty hot back in the day. I thought they were awesome. I wanted a green one. Another reason to pursue a patent, which is legitimate, is because if you're a very small shop and you develop something cool, it's possible for a big company to see your idea, swipe your idea. Fishy holster, says Luke Trout. I thought you were gonna make some kind of like the We Drill holster company, or the Enamel holster company, something. Hello, Aaron Lawrence. But small companies get patents to protect themselves from the big fish scooping their idea and running with it, especially when the small company does not have the capital involved to push into high volume production. So an example would be if I develop a widget and I'm making them on a little desktop router and I'm making 10 a day. And some company scoops it that's got a factory and can put out 50,000 of them a day, they can afford to sell those at a price that I can't compete with, and instantly my entire market is gone. And so it's very common, and I've been involved in discussions about particular products where a large distributor was interested in picking it up, but they would not consider carrying the product unless the product at least had a patent applied for on it, just because they didn't want to invest time and money bringing a new product into their line if any of their competitors could go out there and scoop it with no repercussions. So oftentimes the purpose of a patent is simply deterrence. Hello, Cody Wallace. Cease and desist letters are kind of a double-edged sword. And the reason that's the case is because a company can send a cease and desist letter if they feel that you're violating their patent, and you can either decide to cease production or continue production based on whether or not you think you actually are in violation of their patent. And it's very common that you can go, in a case where there's a patent dispute or somebody gets a cease and desist, you can go to a patent attorney, and this is important, go to a patent or an intellectual property attorney. Do not go to your brother-in-law who does like home foreclosures. It's not, all lawyers are not created equal. There are a lot of ins and outs and little catches and back alleys in this kind of law. I think patent law in the United States is generally broken. One of the big reasons I think it's broken is that because patent law currently recognizes first to file over first to invent. So even if you come up with something first, if somebody else takes it and files it first, files a similar idea first, even if you can prove that you invented it first and were in production before they were, they can use their patent, if they get it issued, to force you to cease production. Justin Lewis said, if not mistaken, only a 10% change in the product is legit and they can't do anything. That's true, Justin, but here's the thing about patent law. I don't have deep enough pockets to fight a major lawsuit. I just don't. I remember reading an article years ago about how Apple and Samsung were involved in a years-long patent lawsuit over the press and swipe to unlock your smartphone screen thing. And Apple had applied for a whole bunch of patents. They got rejected. They adjusted them, resubmitted, got rejected, adjusted, resubmitted. And eventually they got some of those patents and hit Samsung over the head for somewhere around $4.5 billion. None of the amounts we're talking about in our industry even begin to approach those kind of numbers. Another use of patents, as Anthony Booth just mentioned, can be to prevent brand confusion or product confusion. Trademarks also come into play here. You can trademark a product name and prevent somebody else from using it. They can't just copy your product and copy your name. But in the holster industry, typically, the companies that have the capital and the lawyers and the time to actually make something out of a patent case are the big ones. So that would be like, Galco, Blade Tech, Blackhawk, Safariland, DeSantis, Bianchi, the big guys, because they can afford to actually prosecute a patent against somebody. I want to spend my life making things. I don't want to spend my time taking people to court, which means that even if I had a whole bunch of patents on a whole bunch of different products, whenever possible, I would do everything in my power to avoid having to take somebody to court. But here's the thing. If you're a small shop and somebody sends you a cease and desist, you better take a long, hard look at what's going to actually be involved in fighting that. Because even if it takes 6 months and you win, okay, the cost to you, energy, stress, time, dollars, is going to be significant. And so you've got to be prepared to pay that price up front, knowing that you're gambling. You may win, you may lose. In terms of design changes being a workaround for a patent, yes. If you take something and change enough about it so that it's dissimilar from the original, then sometimes you can work around a patent. But that doesn't protect you from being sued. That just means that you can win the case if you actually manage to fight it to the end. And so in a lot of cases, the process is the punishment. Getting wrapped up in a patent lawsuit could bankrupt your business, even if you were right, even if their patent was groundless. Even if their patent was bogus and you didn't violate their bogus patent. I'm not talking about Hellbent, but some company that had a general bogus patent. Say somebody patented socks. Hey, Todd May, MK Tech Holsters in the house. Please share the feed. And then a lot of these lawsuits get settled out of court. So one other thing that guys I think sometimes don't realize is in order to be liable for damages, as far as I understand from talking with a friend of mine who is a patent attorney, to be liable for damages, you have to have been contacted by the patent holder. Just having the patent published and being out there is not enough for you to be liable for damages. Oftentimes, companies will send a letter to somebody they feel is violating their patent in the hopes of then moving that person into a royalty or a licensing agreement. That's one of the ways the patent holder recoups the costs of first paying for the patent and then whatever R&D was involved in designing and producing the product. Royalties and licensing are not uncommon. An AR company that I really like, Mega Arms, a number of years ago made a beautiful monolithic upper until they got, they closed that whole part down. They closed that product out. They stopped selling it, stopped making it. Because another company, I think it might have been Lewis Machining Tool, it was LMT or LWRC, one of the L's, got a patent granted on their monolithic upper, and it looked like the Mega Arms one was going to be borderline on infringement. And so Mega, rather than risking getting in trouble over it, they just went ahead and took the whole product down. Dark Horse Tacticals here, 98 Tactical Holsters. Hello, Mike Holmes. Thank you guys for stopping by. Please do share the feed if you're here. And so there are many legitimate uses for patents. However, I don't like them generally, and I don't plan to spend most of my career pursuing them. I don't really want to have a whole bunch of patents that I can use because I'm more interested in innovation being free and open than I am in maximizing the dollar amount that I get to take off the table. And Daniel Taylor says, I think what we were most excited about was that he was able to get the patent for the wallet. So it's a process. Somebody who works for the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office goes and reviews all the documentation that a patent applicant sends in. Then they go and they look at all the other currently issued patents to see if there are similarities, to see if there's prior art, to see if there's other things that would preempt that patent and make it not patentable. But it's a human process. Like, there's no 100% certainty. Lots and lots and lots of times, patents have gotten issued that other people thought shouldn't have gotten issued. But we don't get to make the decision. The U.S. Patent Office does. But the patent can be contested in court. If you got sued for making wallets, you would have the ability to challenge the patent. It would be possible for the outcome of a case to not, if Hellbent Holsters sued somebody for making wallets, it's possible that the outcome of the case could be not only that the company being sued is not found liable for damages, but it could also be the case that that particular lawsuit damages or destroys Hellbent's patent. It's possible. That happens with patents. Spiders here, there goes the neighborhood. So people have been buzzing because the Hellbent Holster wallet patent was a patent that was publicly discussed in the Kydex community, and almost everybody who looked at it, who was not a lawyer, looked at it and said, there's no chance he's patenting the moon. But sometimes you patent the moon. So I believe Spencer Keepers has a patent approved on the adjustable, movable foam wedge for Penix holsters. Also not a problem for me. Mine's molded in. But, dude, Glade Smith is here. Man, Glade, thank you for stopping by. Everyone's been talking about your patent today. A lot of guys are excited. A lot of guys are confused. Props for sticking with it for that long and pushing it through. I've never received a patent myself, so I'm sure I don't begin to understand how much work and stress goes into that, or how much money. So, boom, Glade Smith is in the house. So yeah, for the kind of stuff that I make, I don't have any products that I sell at the volume that Hellbent Holster sells wallets. And so I've got a much smaller market share that I would potentially be protecting if I pursued patenting my stuff. It's a long and stressful process, says Anthony Booth. I believe it. Why is it not letting me scroll through comments? Look, guys, the number one reason for us filing a patent to begin with was over 3 years ago. We sat down at the table in California with Oakley, and they were interested in purchasing it. And one of the things I said earlier on in the video is that a lot of big companies will not consider picking up a product unless you at least have a patent applied for, because they want to protect their market share and their investment also. So one of the problems with the patent industry as a whole, though, is the way the laws are written and the way lawsuits work and the way cease and desist can be sent out, is that there exists an entire category of companies that are called patent trolls. And this is in all kinds of industries, but it's mostly found in electronics and tech, where companies will buy up existing patents, because you can buy a patent from somebody who holds it. You can sell a patent if you have one. They'll buy up existing patents and then send very general, vague, threatening letters to everybody under the sun they can think of and demand either an upfront licensing or royalty payment or threaten a lawsuit. And for a lot of small businesses, the risk of having to go to court makes it impossible to even take that chance. And so there are companies, there are individuals who make their living just, they make their living going around and trolling other companies and threatening them with lawsuits to make money via the patent system. So I'm not at all saying Hellbent does that. Not at all. But it is not the case that the patent industry is completely transparent and above board. There's a lot of things about the way the laws work and who's liable when. They get kind of complicated. One of the other things that I found out years ago, which kind of threw me for a loop, was if you are making a product and somebody else has a patent pending and they send you notice and you choose to ignore the notice, thinking that your product doesn't infringe, and later they get the patent, they can not only go after you for the amount of revenue you generated with that product in the meantime, they can actually sue you for triple damages. Because, the thinking goes, one of the arguments for that is that all the sales you made, which would convert to further business, would have converted to further business for them. And so not only the initial gross amount, but also the downstream revenue and returning customers that would have been generated by those sales are also a legitimate damage that can be assessed against you. So that's the way that works. The masses need to be educated on what the patent covers. Lots of yokels going nuts. Yeah, I mean, patent trolls rarely invent products. Often they buy patents. Yeah, if a company owns thousands of patents, they're either the world's greatest inventors or they're patent trolls. Or they're just big companies and have bought out all their competitors. So I don't know what we're going to see in terms of patents and litigation in the holster industry over the next 5 years, because there's going to be a lot of innovation. There's going to be a lot of new production. There's going to be a lot of new processes, a lot of new products. I think some people will go for patents. Some won't. Some will get patents. Some won't. No way of knowing how that's all going to shake out. My picture didn't freeze, Joey Gregory. Maybe your picture froze. So it'll be interesting to see. Other things I'm working on. Recently, I've been working on some outside the waistband tackle holsters that have Unity mounting solutions that play nice with drop legs from a couple different companies. That's been fun. I got some Trijicon RMRs in. You can guess where that's headed. I'm also getting ready finally to finish up some CAD work on my CZ P09 and P07, bring those molds to market. And so, yeah, I've been hard charging since the beginning of January to get stuff ready in time for SHOT Show. One other cool thing, double magazine carrier I designed today. It's a new mold for a client. I want to just show this to the camera. I don't know if you guys can see how tight that hardware fit is. Like, look at that margin. Look at that wing angle and that little gap there. Yeah, it's a minimal package, nice and small. Glock 940. Hey, Patrick Rohrman. Hello, Wesley Men's House. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in our field as more products are patented, as companies, and this is the other thing I think, and I called this, I don't remember if I mentioned it in Facebook Live, but I clearly remember a conversation by phone in late November, early December with another holster maker, and I said that what I expected to start seeing in 2017 was mergers and acquisitions, murders and executions. And that's exactly what we've already seen. And again, it involves Hellbent holsters. So Glade has now Travis Miller of Miller Tactical Group taking over the holster division at Hellbent Holsters. To me, that seems like a phenomenally smart business move because Glade has been so busy with this unbelievably hot product he's got where he's spending all of his time hiring employees, moving into new facilities, bringing new production online to keep up with wallet sales, that the inevitable result is that over the past few years, the holster side of his business has had to take second seat. That's totally normal. With that kind of expansion, that kind of market penetration, that happens. Secondary products are secondary. But I'm excited to see Travis move into that position, and we're going to start to see companies jumping forward in the learning cycle by bringing in people who have been already working at that level on a smaller scale separately. And so the big thing, the way to understand that trade-off, because I know I would have a very hard time burying my personal brand that I've spent close to a decade now working on. But this is where I see the cost and benefit for both sides. So the first one is Glade gets a chance to really tighten the loop and go through a whole bunch of, just basically skip a whole bunch of the learning cycle and leap right to non-membrane forming, trim routing, all the things that Travis is already doing in his shop. He just ports those through Hellbent. They get rid of any of the old processes that are obsolete, and everything quickly comes up to speed. The quality comes right up. The employee training is on the new process, and then they just start cranking out holsters. What a bigger business brings to the table for the small holster maker is access to capital and market share, marketing. So a company like, well, I always joked, although this is totally in earnest. I've told several people that I will go out and buy myself a bottle of scotch. Hello, Alan Painter. Thank you for sharing the feed. I will go out and buy myself a bottle of scotch the day I get a call from Raven, G-Code, Safariland, Blackhawk, Blade Tech, any one of those companies asking me to come for a job interview. The day I get that phone call, I'm buying myself a bottle of scotch. I don't think I'm going to get that phone call anytime soon. I think a lot of those companies have no idea who I am, which is totally fine. But I fully intend to be on their radar. Maybe not this year, maybe not till next year, but I intend to get there. So big picture business plans. Some small shops are looking at a great product they've developed, a really slick process, everything's fine-tuned, runs like a Swiss watch, but they don't have the capital to get all the equipment they want, to pay for the marketing. They don't have access to a big enough customer base. Okay? If you have the opportunity to pair up with a company that doesn't have your product but does have the customer base you want, it's a win-win. They get a product to move to their customers, and you get immediate access through their marketing pipeline to all those customers that it would take you a long time to reach organically yourself, and a lot of money if you were doing paid Facebook ads. You never know, man, says Cody. Yeah, I never know. Like, if I get a call tomorrow from Raven Concealment and they want to hire me, I'll buy myself a bottle of scotch. I don't know how well. I think I would play nice. I've worked for other companies before. I don't know how well it would work for me to try to be part of some other Kydex shop. I just don't know. Generally, I'm a pretty easygoing guy, but I'm pretty intense about the work. So we'd have to see. Anyway, I don't anticipate having to make that decision anytime soon. But you never know. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tonight. I'm sure Raven watches me and they know I'm a night owl. Maybe they'll call me. But in talking with John Hauptman about the balance between craftsman and factory, because I came very much from the craftsman background, classical musician, trained as a violin maker. I was very much on the artist side, hand-built, small volume, low volume, very high quality, high price point. That's my whole background. Just budget, Tom. I have to give myself an excuse to spend the money. But on the factory side is usually large overhead, have to move very high volume, trying to keep cost of goods as low as possible, and that sometimes leads to cutting costs on material and hardware and paying for the cheapest possible labor that doesn't do a good job. It's QC problems, all kinds of things. But what we've come into now in the past 20 years as the price of CNC has plummeted is that a shop like mine, which is one man, who comes from the craftsman side and has the ability to hand make the product, now gets to a point where I can have my own mini factory. And I really do. I have a mini factory. Like, I have a production process and a production workflow in the shop where I churn out a high volume of certain identical parts over and over and over, week by week, month by month. I can work for you, says Gary Gonzalez. Do you own G Code, Gary? Is it Gary Code or Gonzalez Code? So I think that we're going to see this year a number of other companies start to merge. And this could be as simple as two Codex companies that are in a roughly similar geographic location and are run by friends, decide to pool their resources, pool their marketing, pool their experience, combine the shops, go in as partners, and try to punch out much more product, reach a larger slice of the market, really focus their marketing, because there is an economy of scale in people too. 2 people can do more than double the work of 1 person. 10 people can do way more work as they differentiate out into particular parts of the process, particular parts of the job, and really get it dialed. So, if I was in charge of polishing and finishing, just edge buffing and finishing, not assembly, not forming, not trimming, and not design, if I was only in charge of polishing and edge finishing in a large shop that did 400 to 500 units a day, I would absolutely spend all my available extra time and energy ruthlessly optimizing that process to give us stupid fast production on those edges with gorgeous results every time. That's what I would do. I don't currently have time, energy, or money to do that for my own shop. I'm managing so much logistics, managing all the parts of the process, doing all the design, answering the email, shipping the product, sweeping the floor. I do all that. So I never have all the time to do every piece of optimization I want. But if you can bring somebody in and give them that and say, this is your thing, own it all the way, the results that can produce are extraordinary. Alan says, I would quit that polishing job day 1. That's my nightmare. Well, some guys hate it, some guys love it. I don't especially care for polishing, but I do love taking processes. Bill Tate says, edge finish equals bad grind. Well, I think that if I dedicated all my time and energy to it, that within a few months I could probably make significant improvements in the way polishing was done in that shop. I know I could make significant improvements to the way polishing is done in my shop if I had nothing to work on but testing and improving the polishing process. Now, that's all I do anymore, says John Hopman. Yes, I've turned you into a slave to the flap wheel. Haha. Because I send him so many parts. So here, buff this. Here, buff this. And when you're done buffing that, buff this. And when you're done buffing that, buff those. And then buff these ones. And it's just like bins of stuff waiting to be buffed. Get your shine box. Yeah. So, hey, if you are a holster company and you want to expand rapidly, either consider going to work for somebody else or consider trying to hire some other holster makers into your shop. Hello, Rick Wayne. So I think we're going to see more mergers, and I think they're not all going to be super effective. I think we're probably going to see some mergers that don't make sense because it's a business decision and not every business decision makes sense. We polish edges by the thousands, and I've made the process very easy. See, that's exactly it. I think one of the reasons why a lot of shops are running very unoptimized processes for a lot of their steps is because they do a small enough volume of production, they go through that process few enough times in a week that that the inefficiency is not unbearably agonizing. So, hey, Glade Smith, I want to talk to you about edge finishing. I want to pick your brain about that. I'm endlessly curious. And you polish a lot more edges than I do, so I'd love to know. But, you know, the potential of good, forward-thinking, aggressive, creative shops pooling their resources to go out there and find niches in the market, really market hard against them, really figure out where those customers are paying attention, and then market well to them there. Spend your dollars, spend your time, spend your energy actually marketing where the customers you want to sell to are paying attention. You know, if you were selling primarily 1911 holsters, hands down, I'd be marketing on Facebook over Instagram, just because of age demographics. If I was marketing 1911s I'd be trying to build a presence in certain forums, because there are some hardcore forums for 1911 guys. I would be trying to do some biz dev with some of the nicer 1911 shops. So that'd be, I'd be talking to Les Bayer, I'd be talking to Nighthawk, I'd be talking to Wilson Combat, I'd be talking to all the shops that make high-end 1911s, and I would try to get as many of my holsters into their hands as possible for free on my dime to make sure that they see how much I can bring it when it comes to making a quality product that supports their firearms. But like, if I was thinking about trying to market my business on Snapchat, I don't think that marketing 1911s and marketing on Snapchat go together. The demographics don't match up. Snapchat is too aged down, and 1911s, seriously, they tend to be the 45 and older crowd. That's just, you'll always see more 1911s on the guys 45, 50 and up than you will on the 35 and unders. Just reality. Chris, simplify the edges. One part of speeding up my edge finish time was designing products with a lot of straight edges with very few curves. So this is totally true. Let me pull off one of my holsters and show you guys. By the way, this is totally fun. It's comped 17. It's not a Roland special, but it's totally fun. So on the back side of this holster, this curve right here, right there, if I was going to have this be a production item that only ever came with a partial sweat guard, I would actually take that out, lower this cut line, and go straight from this corner up to that peak, and I would have an easier time buffing. I know a lot of guys are going back and forth, and this is, I think 3 years ago was not the right time, but I think now is the right time to go all in on RMR cuts. I'm doing it right now myself. I'm redesigning my molds so that I'm moving the attachment points around. Historically, all my appendix rigs have had the slide side soft loop shifted off the partially into the sight channel and angled for a little more rotation. That prevents me from putting an RMR cut. I'm right now going back and updating all my appendix holster designs to make them fully RMR compatible, even taking into account more unusual optic setups like the Unity Tactical Atom Slide, which has a large adapter plate with the iron sight in front of it, which pushes the iron sight very far forward on the slide. I'm working on adapting all that into the process because I think we're going to see a lot more comped RMR'd guns. They've been around, but I think they're really going to be showing up more, especially in the appendix market. So that's what I'm working on. But John points out you can design the product around the process. And that's totally true. Like, for a long time, so bandsaw blades, really, really easy change. If you find yourself dealing with, in your edge finishing step, inside corners that are really hard to get into because you cut them too tight, a really simple way to fix that problem is go to a wider bandsaw blade so that you can't cut corners that tight. So I know a lot of guys are like, I use a scroll saw. I'm like, man, it would be way too easy for me to cut radius curves that were too tight if I was using a scroll saw. I don't ever put a blade on my bandsaw that's narrower than 1/4 inch. I used to run only 3/8 inch blades, but I could find my local hardware store started stocking 1/4 inch ones that worked pretty well. and they were so cheap that I just buy a lot of those and use them up. So you can build into the design angles, straight lines, and access to the edges so that you can polish. Another example of this, I don't have one handy, my AR-15 magazine carriers that I recently released. They are a unfolded shell. There's no folds in them anywhere. Very much like the Filster skeleton, they are CNC trimmed as two separate pieces, then lined up and interfaced only with hardware. But those actually have no eyelets. It's they're just interfaced with screw posts. And so when I go to polish those, when I go to buff those edges, it's basically just a square. And I just go around the edge on one piece and then go around the edge on the other piece and then put them together, put the hardware on, and it's done. It has been so easy to polish and buff those that I'm going to be working more aggressively, because what I used to do when I was more concerned about cost of materials than I was about time, I used to design with the goal of minimizing hardware usage, because screw posts were money. And I used to try to find ways to like share retention and belt mount fasteners and try to reduce the total number of fasteners being used in the part to reduce assembly time, but mostly to reduce the cost of the hardware. I don't care about that anymore. And it's not because the hardware has ceased costing money, but it's because I can make more money by going fast. Yes, Richard Perry, you are late. I can make more money by going fast than I can save by making a more complicated, less robust, less simple design for the purpose of saving more hardware. That's backwards. So I'm a big fan of building around your process. Look at how you make things. Look at the parts of the process that cost you time. Try to figure out if there's a way that you can change the shape, change the cuts, or change the order of the cuts, change the size of your polishing wheels, change the size of your bandsaw blade. Do little things to help you more quickly make cuts. Like on this style of holster, this is always the hard part to polish. And even if you are dealing with split molds and you have this holster laid open, you've got the high sweat guard and then that straight front, that inside corner, when the holster is split open, that inside corner is still hard to polish. This is an older holster of mine. You can see the edges are shiny. I don't do that anymore. Not doing that anymore. But you can make improvements without making drastic changes to your design by just changing the outline profile a little bit to make it friendlier for edge finishing. I don't know if Glade's streamlined edge finishing process uses Dremels. I suspect that it probably does. I could be wrong, but that would be kind of a bitter pill for me to swallow because I've been Dremel free for so many years. I would have to turn back the clock and polish up my Dremel chops. And by polish my Dremel chops, I mean hire somebody for $9 an hour to run a Dremel day in, day out, so I still never have to touch the darn thing. Hi, Bobby Jackson. Thank you for stopping in. So big picture business plans. I'm not planning to acquire any companies in the next year, and I'm not planning to be acquired by any companies in the next year, but I am planning on launching at least one secondary brand, separate from Henry Holsters, marketed to a niche, because I think there is significant value in having a company built around a particular segment of the market and having a consistent on-target message in your logo, in your name, in your products, in your website, all directed at one particular slice of the market. No Dremel, says Gladesmith. Now you really have my attention. My mind is going. And so if you are in an area like, so my home state is New York. If you're a holster maker in New York and you want to do local sales, that affects what guns you support, because magazine capacity restrictions in New York. Yeah, lots of purple horned devil things from Gladesmith. Oh no. Magazine capacity restrictions in New York mean more people carry things like snubbies. I'm in Indiana. Most people don't carry snubbies because they can carry a Glock 17. And I wouldn't want to carry a snubby unless some circumstances absolutely required it for some reason. If I can carry a Glock with a full capacity magazine, I trouble getting this to load, says Dean Kennedy. I'm not seeing trouble at my end, so I don't know what to tell you. Bumping the table. So I don't have any interest in carrying a stubby. I'll carry my full-size Glock all the time. But if you identify a niche in the market, and there are many niches in the market, female shooters and carriers are an incredibly underserved segment of the market. Elderly people are a distinct segment of the market, and their firearms choices and their carry options are limited by arthritis. Okay? They're limited by clothing options for elderly people. They might be limited by medical conditions in ways that young people aren't. That's an opportunity to market really effectively against a certain segment. Certain kinds of guns, like you could totally be, I don't know if he's here, but I always joke with Kyle Shook about this, or is it Will Silk? I don't know, Shook Silk, whatever. HolsterLife. I've talked about this before in my Facebook Live broadcasts. Here comes Roland holsters. Yeah, you never know. The Roland special is going to be, I don't think we're ever going to see thousands and thousands and thousands of them. I don't think a business could survive on that alone. But I think Raven did somewhere around $30,000 in pre-sales on their Roland special holster. And I don't know about the rest of you ballers, but I would not sniff. I would not turn up my nose at $30,000 in pre-sale orders on a new holster model, I got to say. So we'll see. Time will tell on that one, on the Roland special. And if you identify a niche and market hard against it, I still can get away from mere edges, says Dean Kennedy. It takes time, but I love it so much. So, Dean, that's a legitimate question for your business. There are certain things that I do in a particular way because I find it satisfying and I don't want to do it any other way. But understand that that is personal emotion driving a business decision that affects your bottom line, that affects your ability to ever hand off that process to an employee because they will never buff the edges the way you can. It affects your ability to produce quantity. It limits your market reach because you simply can't fill as many orders as you could if you could shave 6 or 8 minutes off of every holster. That means more units sold. That means more customers with word-of-mouth marketing for you. That means more of everything. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do polished edges. As more companies like me move away from polished edges, you may find that really high-end 1911 holsters with all custom prints and beautifully beautifully polished edges, that's a legit niche. You can market hard against that. You can join forums, you can identify demographics, you can biz dev with companies who make 1911s, you can get your holsters into the hands of trainers and shooters who use 1911s. Like, as you focus, you can really make more and more effective decisions about how to design that product, how to market that product, and what features it should have. But, I'm not going to tell you you shouldn't take satisfaction in your personal process. Like, if I hated the way I was making holsters, I'd stop making them. I just would stop. But I enjoy the way I make holsters. I find it unbelievably satisfying to fire this guy up and turn out hundreds of trimmed shells in a day. That's really satisfying to me. It's not an artistic satisfaction in the way that that making a violin or making a guitar was an artistic satisfaction, but it is the satisfaction of seeing something that I've worked long and hard on come to fruition and work well time after time after time after time, except when I mess something up and my parts don't align properly. And then it's John Hauptman's problem and he sends me angry texts about it. I'm super sorry about that, John. So my big business plans are really work hard on effective paid marketing this year, because up till now my business basically doesn't do paid marketing. I don't run paid Facebook ads. I don't run paid Instagram ads. I've played around with them. I have run some, but I had not yet taken the time to really get into the weeds and figure out how to do it well, how to craft an effective ad, how much money I should expect to see. My website needs to be optimized. I got to update a bunch of pictures. A lot of stuff is way out of date. They're stern. John Hoffman sends me these texts. These parts don't line up. And he sends me a picture. I'm like, close enough. It's Kydex. Just sand it. Get a Dremel. You'll be fine. So I'm planning to learn smarter marketing this year. Obviously, I'm going to continue with these Facebook Live broadcasts. Since I broke 33,000 on one of the episodes in December, my next goal is the big push this year is for some broadcast, probably later this spring, I'm going to be pushing hard to break the 40,000 views mark. And I hope to have you all help me get over that hurdle when the time comes. There'll probably have to be a giveaway because people love giveaways. But, we'll see. So, other big thing. I'm getting my first full-time employee. He's coming into the shop. He's moving into the shop next month. Unless, something extraordinary happens, he'll be here next month. And I am super excited about that because there is so much stuff in the shop that I'm not able to do when I want, as quickly as I want, because a lot of my time gets sucked up with other small things. So, Dean Kennedy, you love polishing edges. I love sweeping floors. I love it. I used to be a janitor. I was a janitor for my church for a couple of years, and I loved it. I love sweeping floors. In a business sense, it's stupid for me to be taking my time, which is more valuable. It is a pretty big step, Tony. I've put it off for too long. I should have hired somebody last year, but I put it off and put it off. Hey, JT, by the way, my kids are loving that venison jerky. I've had some, but it keeps moving around in the house. It was in the pantry, but now I can't find it, and I think they may have eaten it all on me. But it was delicious. That crossbow shot deer was tasty. Thanks, Ben Miller. I haven't started paying him yet, so he's not an employee yet. When the first paycheck hits, then it'll be a big deal. I'll hire you to sweep floors. I hate it. So a little bit of background on me. I was on medication, in counseling, treated for serious OCD when I was in high school. It was destroying my life. And I didn't really start to get over that until I really came to college and became a Christian, and my life totally changed. I grew up going to church, but it wasn't until I became a Christian. My life really did change. But ever since I was a kid, I've loved cleaning stuff up. And I find ways to scratch that itch. I like sweeping the shop floor. I like vacuuming things. I just like cleaning. I like creating order out of disorder. But I also like delivering custom mold projects ahead of schedule. And those two likes are in tension. And so I'm probably never going to give up sweeping the floors, although I'm not going to be the only one who sweeps floors in the shop in the future. But I do want to make sure to still be connected to the basic level of stuff in my business. And so I don't want to be the boss in the back office who's like, hey, you guys out there, sweep up the floor. So I intend to be, no matter how many employees I end up with as the business grows, I intend to be directly connected to even the grittiest, most mundane jobs of the business. I'll polish some edges sometimes. I'll assemble holsters sometimes. But I do need to maximize my ability to do the work that only I can do in the business. And so bringing the first employee in is a step to free up one of my hands so that I can get more of the productive work that I have to do myself done. And then the employee will be running the vacuum former, running the Swift press, running the small router. He'll be running this sometimes. Like when my dad came out and visited, I had him running the CNC mill in half an hour of instruction. But it was because I had everything set up. I had a pallet system. The programs were already proofed. I knew they worked. I had all the hardware set out for fixturing the parts. It was pretty straightforward. You made it for a change, says Brent Smith. Hammer Armament. Thank you for stopping by, Brent. Please share the feed. Smart marketing, bringing the first employee on, updating my website, and the goal of updating my website is really, really simple. I think that you should have this goal for your website. Am I going to beat NRAM in Atlanta, Andrew? I have no idea. I don't know. Seen a lot of my custom molds showing up on Instagram lately. Yeah, I'm getting my work out to a lot of different places. The goal for my website update is very, 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 very simple. Ruthlessly optimized for mobile, period. Ruthlessly optimized for mobile. That's it. That's the whole goal. Because when I first built the website, I wanted to be artistic. It was all black and white. I had, everything about the aesthetic, about the menu layout, about the size and shape of the buttons and their locations. It was all very much, an NRA annual meeting. I don't have any plan for that yet. I don't know. But when I first built the website, everything was kind of to satisfy my artistic sense. And it's a functional website. It's fairly simple. I am going to SHOT Show Greg LeBar. I will be there all week. But now, my website does not work that well on mobile. And it's just got to get fixed because I'm primarily active on Instagram. That's where I really do most of my social media marketing. And it's absolutely stupid for me to even consider paying for Instagram ads if people are going to get pushed to my website that doesn't work well on mobile from my paid ad. Like, it doesn't make any sense for me to pay to send people to a broken website. Now, the website isn't broken. It works, but it doesn't look good on mobile. It's not optimized for mobile. So one of my big goals for this month and into next month is reshoot all the pictures, reimagine the layout, recategorize things in menus, reorder them, and really optimize it for mobile because that is absolutely where the purchasing market is headed. If your website looks great on desktop and doesn't work well on mobile, you're losing sales. I'm losing sales because of that. I intend to fix it as soon as I can. So that's that. What else? I'm going to be at SHOT Show next week. I'm excited to be there. Never been before. First time for me. I'm hoping to avoid the deadly plague that people come with and share around at SHOT Show. So if I see you and don't shake your hand, it's not personal. I have OCD, kind of a germ thing. I may be carrying around an entire backpack full of hand sanitizer. I'd like to invent a system kind of like Blaine and Predator where I have the backpack set up full of hand sanitizer and like have this thing. And just when people approach me, I just like hose them down with a little bit of hand sanitizer. The buffet in the Paris Le Lodge is the best, he says. Good to know. Like I said the other day, Raleigh, so the original quote is from Henry Ford. He said, if you need a machine and don't buy it, you will find that you paid for it and don't have it. And I don't quite feel that way with an employee yet, but I'm getting there. If I waited 6 more months to get an employee, I'd be done. I did not build it all myself, Jefferson. I built part of it, but I do maintain it all myself, which is why I don't update products frequently enough because, yeah, I've seen those, John Haltman. I need to go bigger. I want like backpack mounted. I at least want like the gallon jug with the squeezy top, like the big ketchup container. I want that like on a plate carrier, on a chest rig. So as I'm walking around, it's got this giant thing of hand sanitizer. I'm like, I'm just like all over. We'll see. Hello, Aunt Molly. My Aunt Molly Sweeney from Erie, Pennsylvania is watching. That's amazing. This is my shop, Aunt Molly. I hope Michael liked his holster. And Happy New Year. Please say hello to Uncle Chuck for me. Brandon says, I'll give you a tour of Vegas, Andrew. I may need that. It's going to be a pretty busy week because a lot of the guys I've done custom mold work I've never met in person. Heck, I haven't even met Conrad Miller in person yet. So, flamethrower sanitizer. Something. CO2 can and a valve. Yeah, pressurized hand sanitizer. That would be vicious. So I'll be in town pretty much all next week. So Brandon, you've got my contact info. You have my cell. Hit me up. I would love to hang out with you. Maybe grab a beer, see some of Vegas. I don't know where your shop's located, if it's close or far, but if it's close and you've got time, I'd love to check out your shop. If you're a holster maker and you're going to be at SHOT, my phone number is 812-369-2266. That's my cell. I'll have it on me all week. Feel free to text or call. If you text, please identify yourself by name and company in your initial text so that I don't just be like, whatever, delete it. So, hello, Corey Knowles. Thank you for stopping in and checking out my live feed from my workshop. So yeah, a lot of guys who I've already done work for a year or more are guys that I've never met in person. So I'm going to be meeting those guys in person, which will be fun. But I've also got a lot of other non-holster things to be checking out at the show because I'm going to be getting into some more machining stuff this year that's not holsters. Hopefully bringing some new products to market, working with some new companies, marketing in some new spaces. It's just exciting for me. I've got plans for other machines to bring into the space. And other machines will obviously necessitate other employees to run the other machines. So the goal for 2017 is pretty much put the gas pedal on the floor and hold it there. So this time last year, I was in the weeds of being back in school, teaching. So 2017 is my first year where from January 1 to December 31st, I'm full-time in the holster company the whole year, got nothing else going on. And so I am super excited to see what I'll be able to do, what I can do with that extra time this year. That's going to mean tons of opportunities, tons more time to do new work, to prototype things, to do R&D, to talk to new people, to meet new holster makers, to learn. Like I'm going to get off the phone here and call Glade Smith because I want to pick his brain about his edge finishing process. RCS replacement, yeah, and the hardware. So the modular concealment wing thing is off for consultation at the injection molder. They always make some changes because I'm not an injection mold designer, and there are lots of little tweaks and changes that have to happen for it to mold effectively. You feel the teaching weeds, says JT. Yeah, I'll bet you do. And so that one's pretty much out of my hands at this point. I'm just waiting to hear back from them before we can pull the trigger and actually get the mold made and start shooting parts. Hi, John Alberson. So yeah, there's a bunch of other pieces of hardware. I know I've done some consulting on holster hardware for other companies this past year. Some of those projects are in the works now. I've got an overhook design I'm working on. I got that modular wing system. There's a bunch of stuff going on. So, but as always, the more people are involved in that, the less control I have about the actual time frame for rollout. I would have loved to have had all that stuff in hand for shot. It's not possible. Not going to happen. So I've still got some things I got to run here on this machine, so I'm going to fire the mill back up and get back to work in the shop. If you're interested in CZ molds, drop me a line. I'm going to be rolling out some CZ molds fairly soon. Probably first thing after shot is the goal. I've gotten a lot of inquiries from new companies I haven't worked with before about custom molds in the past 5 or 6 weeks, which is exciting for me. I'm really stoked to see companies start to recognize, and it's not because they recognize my value, but I'm excited to see small businesses recognizing the value of investing in tooling that buys them speed, because every time they use it, they're gaining. And so there are going to be tremendous opportunities for forward-thinking, aggressive small companies this year to really get out there. How do I get into CNC machining? I'd like to have something where I can make my holsters consistent, $5,000 or less. Any ideas on what would work for that? Maybe a router. Hey, Joey, if you don't have anything, if you don't have any experience with CNC yet, I will warn you the learning curve is steep. Here's what you should do. Get a seat of Fusion 360 CAD CAM. It's free for you. Spend a lot of time on it. Watch YouTube videos, learn to program, because it doesn't matter what machine you have. If you don't know how to program well, the machine will only do what you tell it. And if you try to spend under $5,000, you're probably going to get a pretty mediocre machine for that amount of money. Okay? If you can, I would save up a little more money and try to spend around 10. And you'll get a lot more machine for 10 grand. Clark Tro says, look 6K or over for a router. I think that's a very safe recommendation. It would be to spend at least $6,000 to $7,000 on a router in order to get one that's big enough and durable enough to be worthwhile. But don't get a 4x8 foot router. Like, guys are like, I'm going to get the biggest router possible. Totally stupid. For making small parts, you don't need a big table. Alan Painter says, I spent $10K and I despise my machine. Alan, what did you get? What kind of machine do you have? Hey, Eric Powell, you're way late. But Joey, what you don't want to do is you don't want to pay for a machine and get it on the floor before you have the programming chops to actually make it work for you. I know at least one holster maker who basically did that. I forget who it was. But somebody bought a machine and it's just sitting. And it's been sitting for months because he doesn't know how to program it. Tormach. I outgrew it within months, says Alan. Yeah. I looked at buying a Tormach a couple of years ago, and I'm so glad I bought this instead. Tom Kelly says $5,000 in custom molds will allow you to buy 20K in CNC. And that's the thing I was saying about small businesses recognizing that when they invest in tooling that buys them speed, they reap the benefit of that speed every time. It's like watching grass grow, says Alan. Yeah, I was machining some parts today, and I had the rapids all the way up, and I was roughing at 390 inches per minute at a 3/4 inch depth of cut and a 0.2 inch step over, and it was smoking. Really fun. Had to log back in, Eric Powell. Yeah. So, if you're a small shop and you want to get into CNC, but you don't have the capital to get into CNC yet, I would say plan to leapfrog there by getting into having CNC molds made and then going out and getting software. And while you're still doing the process manually with CNC molds and a trim router on a router table, trim guide on a router table, then be spending all your available time learning CAD/CAM. But be banking the extra money. Invest in the process right now so you can generate more revenue immediately with the improved molds, and then be setting aside that money into your CNC fund so that when you get to the point where you've got the money set aside to buy the CNC, you've also already put in 6 to 8 months of intensive learning of CAD/CAM. You have the chops, you have some parts designed, the machine will show up and you'll be able to put it to use. Did you have to turn it down to FANUC speeds? Why would I turn down to FANUC speeds? The only reason I cut it 390 inches a minute, Clark, was because it was a fairly small part and it was vacuum fixtured, and I didn't want to throw it off the fixture, so I could go faster. Hi, Alan Morrison. Hopefully you've made some fun use of all that Codex I sent you home with. So that's pretty much going to be it for me. I'm kind of tired. My family's getting sick this week, so I'm hoping to not catch it. Just colds, but I'm hoping to not catch it before I go to shot. And as usual, I will go through and answer any questions that I didn't get a chance to answer in the course of the video. I'll answer them in text. One kind of comment that I would like to see more of, so I'm going to ask you straight up for it. I would like to see more comments about what you would like to see covered in future videos, just because it helps me understand what you're thinking about, what you're consuming, what you're reading, what you're watching, in order to more effectively share what I know that could be most helpful to you right now. So help me help you. Help me help you by telling me what you would like to know about. Glade Smith, thank you very much for tuning in. Hellbent Nation was in the house. The rest of you have a great night. If you're going to be at SHOT, please hit me up. I'd love to at least, even if I only get 5 minutes with you. If you're a holster maker and you've watched my Facebook Live feeds and paid attention to my content, I'd love to shake your hand and thank you for your time and attention. So hit me up, 812-369-2266. And I'm planning to do some Facebook Live broadcasting from SHOT. Starting website, I'm not smart on that part. Cook, I can probably do that, but that's not really my area of expertise either. But I can probably give you some basic help with that. There are other people in the Codex industry who are much better equipped to do Facebook Live videos about how to build an effective website, and they should do it. So if you are a holster maker and you've got good website building chops, start doing Facebook Live video about that. I'll watch it. I want to know. So, am I going as media? No, I'm not going as media, Matthew Bills, so I have other plans for range day. I will not be at the range. Saying I do Facebook Live broadcasts doesn't get me a media badge. So, have a great night, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you on the live feeds next week from SHOT Show, which should be a blast. So, until then, good night.